My phone was buzzing in my pocket while my dad told 40 relatives I was his biggest mistake. His wife sat in the back row, crying, texting me the same message over and over, "Show them everything." My finger hovered over the button that would connect my phone to their TV. 15 years of lies. Months of screenshots. One choice. I looked at my dad's face, still talking, still rewriting history. Then I stood up. The living room went silent when I stood up. 40 pairs of eyes turned from my father to me. He stopped mid-sentence, his face showing that flicker of concern he'd perfected over the years. The same look he'd given me when I graduated college and he wasn't there. When I bought my first house and he didn't visit. When Mom died and his number went to voicemail. My phone felt like fire in my pocket. Jennifer's texts kept coming, rapid buzzing against my leg. I could see her in the back, mascara running, phone clutched in both hands. She looked terrified. Good. I have something to show everyone, I said. My voice didn't shake the way I expected it to. If that's okay with you, Dad, since we're sharing hard truths today. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Looked at Jennifer. She was already standing, moving toward the door, but Uncle James blocked her path without even realizing it. Just stood up to grab another beer at exactly the right moment. I pulled out my phone. The TV remote sat on the coffee table. My grandmother was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. She'd barely spoken to me in a decade. I didn't even know if she remembered my middle name anymore. Actually, I said, I think everyone needs to see this. I was 7 when Dad sat me down and explained that sometimes people have babies before they're ready. He didn't say I was a mistake that day. He didn't have to. It was in every careful word, every gentle explanation about how he and Mom were so young and didn't plan for this. When they divorced 2 years later, I became the walking reminder of his rough start. He got an apartment. Started over. Met Jennifer at some corporate event. She was polished, successful, had her whole life planned out. I was 9 years old in hand-me-down jeans while she wore designer everything. They married fast. Had my half-brother within a year. Then my half-sister 2 years after that. Suddenly Dad was at every school play, every soccer game, every parent-teacher conference. Just not mine. I'd sit in the audience at my own concerts, scanning faces, knowing he wouldn't be there. He lived 20 minutes away but might as well have been on another planet. Jennifer's kids got college funds announced at birthday parties. I got a card with a check that bounced twice. Mom tried to explain it away. He's building a new family, honey. It's not about you. But it was about me. It was always about me. The living proof that he'd had a whole life before his real one started. When Mom got sick, I was 19. Lymphoma, aggressive, 3 months from diagnosis to gone. I called Dad from the hospital. Left voicemails. Sent texts with updates. The funeral was on a Saturday. Beautiful service. Mom's friends packed the church. Dad sent flowers. The card said, "Sorry for your loss," like she was a distant relative. Jennifer didn't sign it. I stopped trying after that. Stopped calling on holidays. Stopped hoping he'd show up. Built my own life, my own career, my own peace. 15 years passed like water under a bridge I'd burned myself. Then 6 months ago, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Jennifer's name appeared. "We need to talk about your father." The first text was simple. I owe you an apology. I stared at it for 20 minutes before responding. Jennifer and I hadn't spoken directly in over a decade. Our only interaction was awkward nods at my half-siblings' graduations, events I attended out of obligation to kids who barely knew me. For what? I typed back. The response took hours. Long enough that I forgot I'd even asked. Then my phone exploded with paragraphs. She was in therapy. Having a breakdown. Realizing things about herself. About what she'd done. About me. I made him choose, she wrote. Between you and us. I told him it was too confusing for the kids. That you were from his old life and we were building something new. I was 26 and insecure and I erased you. I read it 3 times. My hands were shaking. More texts came over the following weeks. Confessions during her late-night guilt spirals. She'd convinced Dad that I didn't want a relationship. She'd forgotten to give him my messages. She'd scheduled family events on days she knew I couldn't make it, then told everyone I'd chosen not to come. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Because I'm dying, she wrote. Ovarian cancer. Stage 4. And I can't leave this world knowing what I did to you. What I stole from you. That hit different. I didn't know what to feel. This woman had systematically removed me from my own family, and now she wanted forgiveness because she was sick. Part of me wanted to block her number. Part of me needed to know more. The screenshots started arriving a week later. Years of text conversations between her and Dad. Her coaching him on what to say when I called. Her suggesting he miss my college graduation because it would be too hard on the little ones to see him with his ex's family. There was no ex-family. It was just my mom's sister and 2 cousins. Message after message showed a 15-year campaign of erasure. She'd even convinced him to remove me from his emergency contacts. Told him I was manipulative when I asked to borrow money for Mom's funeral expenses. Said I was trying to guilt him when I sent photos of Mom in hospice. I need you to have these, Jennifer wrote. In case something happens to me and he tries to rewrite history again. I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. The invitation arrived on expensive cardstock. Heavy, cream-colored, formal. Annual family reunion, everyone welcome. My name was handwritten at the top. Dad's handwriting. Below it, a note, time to clear the air. Please come. We need to talk as a family. I almost threw it away. Hadn't been to a family reunion since I was 23. Had walked into that one alone, been ignored by most relatives who didn't know what to say, left after 40 minutes. Never again. But something felt different this time. Maybe it was Jennifer's texts still coming in, each one more desperate. He's planning something, she wrote. I don't know what, but he keeps talking about setting the record straight. Please be careful. I booked a hotel room. Didn't tell Dad I was coming, just showed up. The house was packed. Relatives I barely recognized filled every room. Aunt Margaret, who used to send me birthday cards, looked shocked to see me. Oh honey, I didn't know you were coming. Does your father know? Before I could answer, Dad appeared. He looked older, grayer, smaller somehow. You came, he said. Not warmly. Statement of fact. You invited me. We need to talk. Everyone's here. Good. He walked away before I could respond. The setup should have warned me. Living room rearranged, chairs in rows like an intervention. Dad at the front with Uncle Paul and grandfather. Official. Staged. Jennifer sat in the back corner, face pale, phone in her lap. She caught my eye and shook her head slightly. Warning. Dad stood up and cleared his throat. The room quieted instantly. I want to thank everyone for coming today. I know we usually keep these gatherings light, but there's something I need to address. Something that's been weighing on me. My stomach dropped. I made a lot of mistakes when I was young, he continued. Had a child before I was ready. Before I knew who I was or what I wanted. And I've spent 40 years trying to do the right thing by everyone. But sometimes the right thing is hard. He looked directly at me. I need you all to understand why some relationships in our family are strained. Why some people aren't as close as others. Because not all mistakes can be fixed. Some are permanent. Aunt Margaret's face crumpled. Grandfather leaned forward. Everyone was staring at me. Having a child at 23 with someone I barely knew was the hardest thing I've ever navigated, Dad said, voice steady, practiced. And I've tried. God knows I've tried. But you can't force a relationship with someone who doesn't want one. You can't make someone be part of a family they've chosen to leave. The room spun. He was doing it. Right here. In front of everyone. Rewriting 40 years to make me the villain. I'm sorry you all had to watch this play out over the decades. Sorry that I failed to bring our family together. But I need to stop carrying guilt for something that was never in my control. My phone buzzed. Jennifer. Show them everything. I looked at her. Tears streaming down her face. Phone held up like a weapon. She nodded. My hand reached for the TV remote. Dad, can I respond? My voice cut through the thick silence. He looked surprised. Annoyed. I think I've said what needed to be said. I think there's more. I stood up, phone unlocked, Jennifer's messages filling the screen. I think everyone deserves the whole truth. Not just your version. Grandfather straightened. Let her speak, David. Dad's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside. I connected my phone to their smart TV. Took 3 tries because my hands were shaking. Jennifer's texts appeared on the 65-inch screen, huge, undeniable. What is this? Aunt Margaret asked. This, I said, is a conversation between Jennifer and me from 3 months ago. Where she confessed to systematically removing me from this family for 15 years. I pulled up the first screenshot. Jennifer's words in blue bubbles, I made him choose between you and us. I told him you were from his old life. I was 26 and insecure and I erased you. Gasps rippled through the room. Dad's face went white. Keep going, Jennifer said from the back, voice broken. Show them all of it. Next screenshot. Her detailed confession about forgetting to pass along my messages. About scheduling events on days I couldn't attend. About telling Dad I didn't want to be involved. Uncle James stood up. Is this real, Jennifer? She nodded, sobbing. I scrolled to the worst ones. Text conversations between her and Dad. Her messages in green, she's just trying to guilt you. Don't go to the funeral. She's manipulative like her mother was. The kids don't need that negativity around them. Dad's response is, "You're right. I won't go. Better this way." Aunt Margaret made a sound like she'd been punched. "David, you knew?" The next screenshot showed Jennifer's message from last month. "I convinced him to remove you from the will completely. Told him you'd contest it anyway. I'm so sorry." Cousin Rachel, who I hadn't spoken to in 8 years, turned to Dad. "You removed her from your will? Your own daughter?" "There's context," Dad started. "Context?" I scrolled faster. "Here's her telling you to miss my college graduation because it would be too hard on the little ones. Here's her lying about me asking for money when Mom died. I never asked, I borrowed from a friend. Here's her coaching you on what to say when I called after Mom's funeral." The TV showed message after message. A timeline of manipulation so detailed, so methodical, it looked like a business plan. Because that's what it was. Project, erase the first daughter. Jennifer stood up, swaying. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. I thought I was protecting my family, but I was destroying his. I was dying and needed to." "You're dying?" Grandmother's voice, sharp. "Stage 4 ovarian cancer," Jennifer whispered. "I have maybe 6 months. I couldn't die knowing what I'd done. So I told her everything. Sent her proof. Because he was planning this." She pointed at Dad. "This whole reunion. This speech. Making her the villain one last time before I'm gone so you'd all side with him when she fought the will." The room erupted. Everyone talking at once. Dad trying to speak over them. Jennifer collapsing into a chair. Uncle Paul demanding answers. I just stood there, phone in hand, watching my father's carefully constructed narrative implode on a screen 3 feet from his face. "Enough." Grandfather's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. The room went silent. He stood slowly, arthritis making each movement deliberate. 92 years old and still commanded absolute respect. He walked to the TV. Looked at the screenshots. Read them carefully, one by one. Then turned to my father. "Did you know?" Simple question. Heavy as stones. Dad opened his mouth. "It's not that simple." "Did you know?" The silence stretched. Dad's eyes darted around the room, looking for allies. Found none. "Some of it," he finally said. "Jennifer was protecting our family. The kids needed stability. It was complicated. Complicated." Grandfather's laugh was bitter. "You abandoned your daughter because it was complicated." "I didn't abandon." "You didn't go to her mother's funeral, David." Aunt Margaret's voice shook. "We asked you why. You said she didn't want you there. You lied to us." Jennifer said. "Jennifer isn't your conscience." Uncle James slammed his hand on the armrest. "She's not your excuse. You're a grown man who chose to erase his own child." Dad turned to me, desperate. "You don't understand the pressure I was under." Jennifer was struggling. "The kids needed attention. You were always so independent, so capable. I thought you'd be fine." "You thought I'd be fine?" My voice came out steady. Calm. 20 years of hurt compressed into ice. "You thought watching you build a whole new family without me would be fine? You thought not coming to Mom's funeral would be fine? You thought removing me from your life like I was a subscription you canceled would be fine? I tried. You tried nothing. You let your wife rewrite history and you helped her. These texts prove it. You weren't manipulated, Dad. You were complicit. Jennifer made a sound like a wounded animal. I told him to fight for you. Last year, when I got diagnosed. I said make this right while there's time. He said you'd moved on. Didn't need him. I said that's what I told him to believe, but it wasn't true. He said maybe it was easier if it was true. Dad's face crumbled. Jenny, don't. No. She stood, wobbly but determined. You wanted to make her the villain today. Paint yourself as the victim of a daughter who walked away. But she didn't walk away. We pushed her. I pushed her. You let me. And then you blamed her for leaving. Grandmother was crying silently. Aunt Margaret had her hand over her mouth. Cousins I barely knew looked at me with something like recognition, maybe shame for believing the narrative all these years. I lost my mother, I said, voice cracking finally. The only parent who ever showed up. Who ever fought for me. And you sent flowers like she was a stranger. You let your wife tell you not to come. You chose convenience over compassion. You chose the family that was easier to love. That's not fair. Fair? The word came out sharp. You just told 40 people I was your biggest mistake. You staged an intervention to publicly blame me for our relationship failing. And you want to talk about fair? Uncle Paul stood. David, I think you need to leave your own party. This is my house. And we're your family, grandfather said. The one you've been lying to for 15 years. I think you've said enough for one day. Dad looked around the room. Saw no support. No understanding. Just disappointment staring back from every face. He grabbed his keys and walked out. Slammed the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. Jennifer sank into her chair. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to say to her. This woman had stolen 15 years from me. From my family. And now she was dying and sorry and broken. But sorry doesn't give you back time. The 2 hours after Dad left felt like stepping into an alternate timeline. Aunt Margaret pulled me aside first, hands shaking as she held mine. I should have known, she said. You stopped coming to things and I just believed what he said. That you were busy. That you'd moved on. I should have called. Should have asked you directly. Cousin Rachel sat next to me on the couch where Dad had been standing an hour earlier. I remember your graduation, she said quietly. I asked Uncle David why you weren't at the family dinner after. He said you had other plans. We all believed it. One by one, relatives approached. Some apologized. Some just hugged me. Some cried. They'd all believed the narrative because why wouldn't they? Why would Dad lie about his own daughter? Uncle James pulled up a chair. Your dad was always good at stories. Even as kids. Could spin anything to make himself the hero. I just never thought he'd do it to his own child. Grandmother sat beside me last. She didn't apologize. Just held my hand and said, "You look like your mother." I forgot how much. We lost her twice when she died. Lost you too. That's on us. He told you I didn't want contact, I said. He did. And we believed him because it was easier than confronting him. Easier than admitting we'd watched him build one family while dismantling another. She squeezed my hand. Easier doesn't make it right. Jennifer stayed in the corner, watched but didn't approach. Uncle Paul sat with her, talking quietly. I heard fragments. You can't fix this by dying guilty. You gave her the truth. That's something. Around 7, people started leaving. Each one made a point to hug me. Get my number. Promise to stay in touch. I didn't know if they meant it, but standing in that living room surrounded by family who finally saw me felt like surfacing after years underwater. Aunt Margaret was the last to go. What happens now? She asked. With your dad? I don't know, I said honestly. He needs to want to fix this. Not be forced by guilt or public shame. Actually want it. And Jennifer? I looked at the woman who'd orchestrated my erasure. She was small, sick, destroyed by her own confession. She gave me the truth when she didn't have to. That counts for something. Margaret nodded. You're more gracious than he deserves. After everyone left, Jennifer and I sat in the quiet house. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I don't deserve it. No, I agreed. You don't. But you told the truth. You gave me proof when you could have died letting him blame me forever. Why? Because I have a daughter, she said. She's 20. If someone did to her what I did to you, I'd destroy them. And I realized I'd become exactly what I'd destroy. We sat in silence. Not comfortable. Not healed. Just two people sitting in the wreckage of 15 years. He won't change, she said finally. He'll rationalize this. Make himself the victim of our confessions. It's who he is. I know. I'm sorry I can't fix it. You can't. But you stopped helping him break it. That's enough for today. She left around 9. I stayed in the empty house where my father had tried to publicly disown me that morning. Looked at the photos on the walls. His perfect second family. The life he'd chosen. My phone buzzed. Aunt Margaret, brunch Sunday? My house. Bring your appetite and stories about your mom. I want to remember her through you. Cousin Rachel, I'm sorry it took this long. But I'm here now if you want family again. Grandmother, you were never the mistake. You were always the truth. He just couldn't handle it. I drove back to my hotel room as the sun set. Didn't feel victorious. Didn't feel vindicated. Just tired. And maybe, for the first time in 15 years, seen. The next morning, I woke up to texts from relatives I hadn't heard from in a decade. Not performative thinking of you messages. Real questions. Real interest. Real regret. It took 40 people watching 15 years of lies collapse in real time for them to ask how I'd been. Part of me resented that. Part of me understood it. People believe what's comfortable. Dad's story was comfortable. Successful man, second chance at family, first daughter who grew distant. Clean narrative. No villains. My story was complicated. Meant confronting someone they loved. Meant admitting they'd been complicit through silence. Meant work. But truth doesn't care about comfort. It just waits. Builds pressure. Until someone brave or desperate or dying opens the valve. Jennifer was dying and desperate. I was tired of waiting. Dad was afraid we'd both speak. That's why he staged his intervention. Get ahead of the truth by telling his version first, loud, in front of everyone who mattered. He just didn't count on receipts. I learned something sitting in that living room watching everything unravel. You can't out-narrate evidence. You can't spin screenshots. You can't rewrite conversations that exist in writing. The truth will not negotiate. Some people spend their whole lives building versions of themselves they can live with. They edit the hard parts. Recast their role. Make themselves the hero or victim, never the villain. Dad lived in his edited version so long, he believed it. Until 40 relatives saw the director's cut. Family built on lies doesn't just crack under pressure. It shatters. And everyone gets cut by the pieces. The liar. The truth teller. The ones who believed. The ones who stayed quiet. Everyone bleeds. But healing starts in the wreckage. Starts with someone saying this is what actually happened and someone else saying I believe you. Aunt Margaret believed me. Grandmother believed me. Cousins I barely remembered believed me. Not because I was more trustworthy than Dad. Because Jennifer handed them proof that matched what they'd felt but ignored for years. Sometimes healing requires a witness. Someone who saw what happened and says so. Someone who can't be dismissed or gaslit or written off. Jennifer was my witness. The architect of my erasure became the documenter of it. Turns out that's what terminal cancer does sometimes. Makes you face the scorched earth you'll leave behind. I don't forgive her. But I understand her. And that's different. As for Dad, I don't know what happens now. He has to sit with what he did. What he let happen. What he almost did in that living room. Maybe he'll do the work. Maybe he'll double down. People can change, but they rarely do unless the pain of staying the same gets worse than the pain of changing. Right now, his pain is public shame. That might be enough. It might not. But I'm not waiting to find out. I've got a whole family that just woke up to 15 years of lies. Relatives who want to know me. Who want to hear about Mom. Who want to rebuild what got torn down. That's enough truth for now. The rest is his to figure out. If you've ever been the scapegoat, you know this feeling. The invisible child. The one who gets blamed for leaving even though they were pushed. The mistake that got mentioned at family gatherings you weren't invited to. You're not crazy. You're not oversensitive. You're not holding grudges. You're holding truth in a family that chose comfort over honesty. I spent 15 years thinking I was the problem. That if I'd just tried harder, been different, been less of a reminder of my dad's rough start, maybe he would have chosen me. Maybe I would have been worth the inconvenience. Turns out, I was never the problem. I was just the evidence of his choices. And people don't like looking at evidence that makes them uncomfortable. If someone in your family has rewritten your story, made you the villain in a narrative you didn't consent to, you have every right to correct the record. You don't owe silence to people who weaponize your absence against you. Truth is scary. It shatters comfortable lies. But it also frees everyone from performing in a play they didn't audition for. This channel exists for stories like this. Real stories. Messy stories. Stories about families that break and maybe heal and maybe don't, but at least stop pretending everything was fine. If this resonated, if you've lived some version of this, hit subscribe. Every story shared is permission for someone else to speak their truth. Drop a comment with your experience if you feel safe doing that. And share this video with someone who needs to know they're not alone in being erased. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is refusing to be the villain in someone else's redemption arc. You were never the mistake. You were always the truth. And truth doesn't apologize for existing. If you've been erased by your own family, written out of a story you starred in, made to feel like the problem for asking to be seen, I want you to know something. You're not alone. And you're not wrong. This channel is for those stories. The real ones. The ones that don't get told at family reunions because they're too uncomfortable, too true, too close to the bone. If this story hit home, if you saw yourself in those 15 years of silence, subscribe. Every story we share here is permission for someone else to stop carrying shame that was never theirs. Drop a comment. Tell me if you've ever had to prove your own history to people who rewrote it. Tell me what truth you're still holding that someone else tried to bury. And share this. Send it to that friend who thinks they're crazy for feeling invisible in their own family. Send it to the person who needs to know that staying quiet doesn't keep the peace, it just protects the lie. You deserved better then. You deserve truth now. Let's build that together.